Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you've had a good Wednesday so far. My name is Christian Barnes. I am the founder and lead financial coach of Do Better Financial, and welcome to Weconomy Wednesday. We are bringing it back. I hope you really enjoyed the series that I did last week, breaking down the stimulus package. We went through all the different parts, from the stimulus payments themselves to the small business opportunities that are being provided for in that bill as well. There are going to be some more parts coming out, as I've mentioned, through all of those videos. They're actually working on part 4 of that act, but we'll get to that when we get to it. Today, we're actually going to be, kind of walking through what you do when your wallet gets punched in the face by COVID-19. So when I started that series last week, I had no idea that my family would be in need of what we covered on day 2, which is unemployment. My husband went from having a full-time job on Monday to being told to stay at home and be paid in full on Wednesday night to furloughed for the next 90 days on Friday. To say it was a whirlwind is an understatement, but we were not completely unprepared for this. We'd actually kind of been discussing some options about going down to one income so that he might be able to go into full-time study. He's in seminary right now. We talked about maybe doing it for some different business opportunities we wanted to pursue, but we thought it would be on our terms, right? We always assumed that he would be either, voluntarily leaving, not furloughed. I had actually started mentally thinking through this video last week, knowing that a lot of people were struggling with the money that they do have available, if there is any. But it turned out God was like, you gonna get to test this at your own house. So we were the first guinea pig. So the information that I'm about to go through is more or less what we did to try to reorient our lives, particularly in this period where we are between, he still has one more check coming, but where we're between when he's going to stop getting paid by the people who currently employ him. Technically, he still works there, even though he's furloughed. Furlough just means that they don't pay you, but you are still an employee. It's weird. Great thing is that unemployment stuff that we talked about before means he's eligible for unemployment. Problem is, unemployment usually takes 3 to 4 weeks to pass in normal times. This is the government we talking about, so we don't actually know how long this is going to take. So we went through the process of doing a budget, assuming there will be no more money for a little while. So I'm going to take you through some of what we did, and just FYI, if you do qualify for unemployment and they approve you, even if you haven't been paid for 4 or 6 weeks, they will retroactively pay you for the time that you missed. But again, when that's coming, and I can't pay the bill people in, I get it to you when the state of Texas gets it to me. So that being said, I do know that before we get into this for real, I know we have a serious economic advantage by starting with 2 well-paying jobs, right? Not everybody is in that particular boat. So in that original unemployment video that I did, it was actually part 2 of the series. It's the one I couldn't remember last week. It was the second video, so it would have been from Tuesday if you want to go back and check it out. It's also on my YouTube page, which is Do Better Financial. I talked about how to deal with some of the situations that will come from having 0 income, like talking to your creditors, applying for unemployment, seeking different sorts of. So I'm going to be covering some of those options again alongside what I'm going to call our Baloo budget, which is just the bare necessities, right? Just the bare necessities. Just kidding. We're not saying that because copyright, okay? So before we get started, remember this is not your new budget. I had to remind myself of this. I've gotten very accustomed to the budget that we currently have. We've probably been using it for somewhere around 14, 16 months. Very comfortable, right? And so I had to remind myself, this is not my new forever budget. This is an interim emergency situation that's going to continue to evolve, and we can renegotiate our priorities at a later date. This is just so that we can get through the next few weeks, right? So my first suggestion is to start from scratch. Now, if you're a person who's never had a budget, congratulations, this step is what you're doing anyway. If you're somebody like me who's had a budget that's kind of been pre-existing for a little while, then this might be something that seems like, why would I start from scratch? So obviously you're not going to just like erase your budget. I'm suggesting you do what we did. You get out a clean sheet of paper, and you know, here's why. For me, looking at my old budget and trying to just take stuff out was anxiety inducing, right? It made me just internalize the loss even more. When I started from scratch, it allowed me to look at it and go, this is how much we've got. So I put whatever income it is that you have available to you right now. Like I said, it's currently mine. I put it at the top. Side note, make sure you know what your income is. Realize I had kind of screwed that up for the last, I don't know, I guess like a month, right around a month. This is a for real side note, but hear me clearly. We filed our taxes just before all this started, God help us, and we had to pay the government a couple grand, right? I didn't want to have to do that again, so me and Chris sat down with our W-4s and figured out how much extra we needed to take out of my check in order to not owe the government money next year. That kicked in February, but I forgot, and so we didn't change our budget for March. And then we get to April, and I look at my pay stub, and I'm like, where our money at? It's like $500 short. Long story short, we had even less money than I thought that was going to be available for this particular month and going forward. So know what you're starting with. That's number 2. That's going to go at the top. So if there is a number, if somebody in the house is still working, write in what that number is, whatever it happens to be. We'll go through exactly what we're going to do about that whole other situation later, but all right, so here's what a basic budget is going to look like if you don't have an issue to deal with like we do, right? You're going to start with your 4 walls. The idea is that you're building a financial house, right? So 4 walls is going to be basic food, basic housing, utilities, and transportation, okay? So I can already hear you. What about clothes? You can't go nowhere. Wear whatever you got. And if you can't, I believe the name of the place is like ThredUp. There's an online, you know, consignment shop. Borrow from a friend. Ask her to wash it and put it on her doorstep because she can't go nowhere, okay? No clothes. That's not what we're doing right now. It's not an emergency for you to have clothes. Food, housing, utilities, and transportation. So I'm going to start with food, and here's why. If the people in your house can't eat, it's going to be a rough time, okay? So I'm going to say this. Meal planning is very important because you want to avoid waste right now. So in normal situations, when I say meal planning, I mean write down when you guys intend to eat and then go to the store and buy it. Obviously, that's not quite the environment we live in right now. So here's what I would suggest. Buy your staples, right? If you don't already have a set budget for food, figure out how much your some staple meal ingredients normally cost you. So I am a vegetarian, hence this list is not going to include meat. If you are struggling, meat is one of the most expensive things you can quickly cut out. Being a vegetarian ain't bad. My husband fares pretty well, though he does supplement with fast food when, you know, he gets sad of eating beans and rice. So prepare for my list. So things like beans, rice, canned vegetables, right? You're talking about things that will last for a while. You're talking about your potatoes and your onions and any kind of hearty food that can last a while, because a lot of us are only making shopping trips. I know this, I am trying to only make shopping trips every 2 weeks or so. And I say or so because I went a little crazy last time. Right? Anything that you can stick in your freezer easily. Frozen vegetables. We do a lot of yogurt eating, so I have yogurt, but maybe that's not a good option for you. Cereal is actually one of the lowest calorie foods. I know it's really easy if you have kids, but something that will work better if you can get them to eat it is something like oatmeal. Buying it in a big container is better than buying it in the little packets, but if the little packets, it makes it easier for you to function as a family. Do what you need to do, but you're going to have to balance that, right? Because we're talking about an emergency, not a regular time. So figure out how much those ingredients cost, make yourself a list, and then figure out what you can finagle, right? Look for some sales. And when I say look for some sales, I mean, oh, this store and this store, I'm going to use Kroger and H-E-B because they both have options for delivery and pickup. My sisters also told me about Shipped, which will literally deliver to your door for a small monthly or yearly fee. I'm not sure how the fee structure works. I've never done it, but you should definitely check it out. So If you're doing H-E-B and Kroger, you look at their weekly ad and you see that a certain thing is on sale. Particularly with Kroger, order it anyway, because even if they don't have that brand, they'll lower the price of what they do have to that amount. Winning, right? So make your list of those staples. If you can put in your orders and have them both ready for pickup or even delivered to you, you will be able to kind of mix and match some options, right? I believe Walmart does pickup as well. I'm not sure exactly how they do on price matching for ads. I know they price match to other stores, but that's another really good option if you have something that you need that you can get from that store, okay? Other tip when you're dealing with food, eat what you got in the pantry or the fridge, right? Take your time looking through the stuff you already have. Most of us, particularly black people, I'm pretty sure Hispanics do it too. I can't say anything about like our Caucasian friends' freezers and pantries. Those are the houses I've been in. I know my Indian friends, they always had like a box of rice on the floor. My Asian friends too, a lot of them just giant bins of rice, right? So you may not need to buy certain things right now, today, but you may need them later. But for now, you can eat what you have in the pantry and the fridge. I actually found a website called Fridge to Table. There are a couple others just like that, and it's in the description below. And it allows you to put in some of the ingredients you have available, and it'll produce some recipe options that might work for you, right? If you are a person who is food insecure, meaning that you don't have any money available to go grocery shopping, you don't have anything left in the house or not enough to feed however many people in your house, you definitely should tap into the Houston Food Bank. They have some great options. There's a link below in the description that can take you to their website. They can tell you how to sign up for SNAP, which are food benefits in the state of Texas. They also have like an app, a phone number where you can text the word food and they'll show you the closest food banks to where you are. They have another map that shows you where the food banks are, things like that. So if you're food insecure, that is definitely a great resource to reach out to. If you have students, most schools are actually doing meal pickup options. You definitely need to check their websites for the latest information on that, because I know the times can shift and it can be difficult for parents to get to it, but do the best that you can, okay? So that's food. Number 2 is housing. Pay your rent or your mortgage to the best of your ability. Talk to your landlord or your mortgage holder if paying this in full is just not feasible right now. That's not a situation we're in, but who knows? One day it might be. And by the grace of God, we have an amazing landlord. If you don't know the story about me not living in my house for the entire month of January, I'll tell it later. But she's great. So if that's something that's going to become a problem for you, just let people, let them know, communicate with those people. The other thing you probably want to pay, if you can at all, is your insurance. Our church recently had a fire, and while we are having to negotiate with the insurance currently, having insurance will allow us to get some of the things that were destroyed fixed. The last thing you need on top of a pandemic and on top of losing your job is to have a fire and lose everything and not have been able to pay your insurance. So if you can negotiate with the landlord in a manner that will allow you to at least do those things, that would be great. Next on the list is going to be utilities. So keeping the lights on, keeping the water running, keeping the gas on. That other one, I have 4. The other one is internet, but I've got an asterisk. So if you are working from home or your spouse is working from home, I am working from home, my husband is at school from the house, not to mention running this business from the house, right? So we still need internet, so that's something we're going to be paying for. But if you have a student, particularly one who is in primary school or secondary school, right? You're talking about somebody primary. Pretty sure it's primary. On to high school, because I can't think of the right word. Okay, if you have somebody who's in one of those schools, there are programs and there are schools offering options for students, giving out Wi-Fi routers and things like that. So that may be something that you want to look into if it's available in your area. I don't personally know of any options in the Houston area, but if you do, please leave it in the comments below. But again, talk to those utility providers about options if paying for these things in full isn't feasible. I've definitely seen on every single website login that I have, they tell you to call them, email them, they post some options. I'll give you an example of one. In fact, and this is not a utility, but this is just the best example I have. So the YMCA, we currently pay for it. Well, we pay for it. We have a regular subscription, and they literally sent out a questionnaire asking you how much you were able to do if you couldn't continue to do your full amount. And you could choose another amount that would fit your fit your need. So that's something that they're offering. Obviously, they're a nonprofit. They're not, you know, they're not keeping my lights on, but a lot of companies are offering things like that. So definitely keep in touch with them to see what they have available for you in this tough time. Last one is transportation. This one is going to be tricky, right? Because a lot of us literally can't go much of anywhere, but if you live in Houston, riding a bus to a lot of places isn't always a viable option. Uber and Lyft are going to be kind of difficult to get a hold of, or they might not be the best option because you're in close proximity to others, right? You're really going to have to think through how to prioritize this, right? Something that I am huge on is paying cash for cars. So this is something that we don't currently have to contend with. But if you have a car, obviously try to pay your car note if you have enough money available, and keep your insurance current so that when you can get back on the road, you don't have any troubles. There has been a temporary, I'm going to use the word moratorium because I can't remember the right word, temporary moratorium on car registration and things like that by the state of Texas. So if you do have your car registered in the state of Texas, I believe they've extended, like if you have something that expired in March or April, I think you have a couple extra months to get it done. So you don't have to worry about that right now, right? The other one is going to be gas. Again, should be pretty minimal, but if at all possible, keep a little bit of gas in the car. You don't need to necessarily fill it up. So, you know, just dedicate the money that you can dedicate to it, just so you can get back and forth to grocery stores or doctor's appointments if that's something that you need to take care of, okay? So those are your 4 things: food, housing, transportation, and utilities. Those are the 4 things that you really want to focus your finances on. So when we redid our budget, I took my income after I figured out what the right number was, put it at the top, and then we use a spreadsheet. You can easily use a piece of paper for this and just add it up on your calculator, whatever calculator you have available. If you want to practice math, let your kids get involved, let them add it up, okay? It'll take a little longer, but you ain't got nowhere to go. So you're going to list out those 4 things. Those are the 4 things that are going at the top, and then you're going to figure out, if you have any space left, what comes next, okay? So, the way I put it is, everything else on the table is eligible for adjustment or elimination. I'm going to say it one more time before you freak out. Know that this is not your new forever budget, okay? This is a temporary situation. Remind yourself of that as you're going through this process. Take breaks if you need to. There's no need to assault yourself with this, but get it done, all right? Number 1 is giving. So this one's going to be super personal. I know my husband and I made a decision based on what we were willing to do, but I'm not going to make any sweeping recommendations on this. This is not going to affect, you know, your relationship with God if you're talking about giving to your church and you no longer have an income, right? Or if your income has been substantially lowered. We chose to continue tithing on my income. We're going to tithe on what the rest of what he gets until we start getting that income. But at that point, he won't be tithing because he won't have any income, right? For the other giving, we made kind of specific decisions depending on what the situation was, who and what we were contributing to. So like I mentioned earlier with the YMCA, assuming we're able to get his unemployment in place, we would love to be able to pay them something, right? If we're not, they're going to move below the line, and I'll explain what that means in a little bit. But that's just where we are right now, okay? If you have any savings goals that you're working towards, at one point we were talking about going on vacation. We could vacate on the patio maybe, or into the promenade outside the house, but that's about it right now. We're supposed to be going to California in June. I don't know if that's gonna happen, because who knows if anything will be open and available. I don't know if I want to get on a plane then. I have no idea. But if you're saving for anything like that, and you've run into, you know, the fist of COVID eating up your paycheck, maybe the alligator of COVID eating up your paycheck, pick a poison. If you've run into this issue where you have less income available right now, go ahead and pause those savings goals, right? Again, not forever. Pause any aggressive debt snowballing you're doing. We've been working on some stuff. it dropped to the bottom of the list, right? It's just not happening. One of the awesome things in this particular arena is we're not going to be accruing any interest on the student loans that we're trying to finish paying off. Oof, don't touch your face, sorry guys. We're not going to be accruing any interest on the student loans that we were planning to, you know, knock out. There is one thing that's not going to stop, and that's the IRS. They have not stopped auto drafting people. So if you owe them, you have to call them to stop it. FYI, found that out. But we're just gonna go ahead and finish them because we're gonna be done with them next month, and we're gonna deal with it, right? So one of the easiest places to start cutting back kind of aggressively, if you have lost a decent amount of your income, for us is pretty much half, is subscriptions. All right. So look for duplicates. You're stuck in the house, right? I'm not saying that you have to get rid of all the things I'm about to list, but having, you know, 5 or 6 different things that you subscribe to for entertainment, like a Hulu, a Netflix, a Prime Video, a Disney Plus, an HBO, a Showtime, blah, 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 blah. You get what I'm saying. If you subscribe to 5 or 6 of those at the same time, when you're in an emergency, knocking that down to just 1 or maybe 2 is probably a good idea. You should also probably think about if you can afford any of them, right? The other good place to look is anything that you don't or can't use right now. So gym memberships, wax subscriptions, massage subscriptions. You can't use that stuff right now. Anyway, if you're in an emergency, it's a good option to make some space so that you can take care of the things that you absolutely need to take care of. Like I said earlier, clothing, slash it. Personal expenses, we made a decision that we were going to cut our personal money in half, just like our income, right? So that's what we're going to be doing. And things like entertainment, same thing for our entertainment. We decided we were pretty much going to cut that in half. Normally, one of the things we do a lot is go out to eat. We can't go nowhere, but we wanted to still be able, if the income allows it, to enjoy some, you know, food that we order that we don't have to make. I gotta go cook after this. I'm not pleased. I wish we could order some more food, but that's not an option right now, right? So like I said, everything else is an option for adjustment or elimination. Just remember that. So if you heard me say earlier, below the line, this is what I mean. So when you're going through your budget, you're going to have, like I said, at the very top, how much money you make, and then you're going to start writing in the things that are your 4 walls, and then you're going to see how much farther you can get in other people that you owe or other things you would like to continue doing. So when we're going down the list, right, we've got rent, we've got electricity, we've got water, we've got gas, blah, 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 blah. Let's say the number at the top is $4,000. I might run out of $4,000 by the time I get to personal spending money, and that means that Hulu, Netflix, blah, blah, you know, like these guys just don't make the cut. That means, what that means is that anybody who did not, you know, get into the $4,000 box because they just were not a priority, they go below the line. The line is where the money runs out, okay? And so below the line does not mean these people necessarily won't get paid. It could mean that. It could also mean that when we have some extra money, or when something else happens and we're able to shift things, some of these people might get paid. Some of these people might get paid a lot. Some of them might get paid a little. One of the ways to figure out who gets paid and how much they get paid is something called a pro rata plan. So let's say you go through your budget. I kind of alluded to this in my unemployment video, but I'm going to do it again. You go through your budget, you have $4,000 to spend. Let's say $3,500 covers your 4 walls. I'm making up numbers, so don't freak out. Don't tell me, oh, that doesn't cover my stuff. I know. I'm making up numbers that are simple from my brain. So let's say $3,500 covered your rent, all your utilities. It covered everything that you needed to do that I mentioned, and even a couple of things maybe that you want to do. And you have $500 left over for some people that you legitimately owe but can't pay in full, right? What you would do is you're going to divide the amount of money you have left, so $500, by the total that you owe these other people. So let's say you owe the credit card company, I'm making up people again. Let's say you owe the credit card company, you owe the car note people, you owe, you know, insert 2 more people, and that adds up to another $1,000, right? Well, you only have 5, so everybody's minimum payments won't get paid. So you've got 50% of that money. So you would assign $250, 50% of that money to whoever made up 50% of the 1,000. So let's say that was the car note, that they normally get $500, but all you got is $500 for everybody this month. That means they would get $250. So you call them up, you'd say, hey, this is how much I have available for you. And they'd be like, that's not gonna work. And you'd be like, okay, don't know what to tell you. This is all I got. You go back and forth, right? Again, if your line ends up high and it's like in the middle of the 4 walls, like I said, maybe $4,000 is what you got, and all that gets you is, you know, maybe housing, 1 utility, and food, then that means that the rest of the utilities are going to go into this, what we call a pro rata plan. Again, not permanent, just a stopgap in an emergency. You're going to divide the amount that you have left over by your total minimum payments due for that month, get a percentage. You're going to multiply that by the percentage that the bill takes up of that total. So if the bill is half of the total of your bills, then they would get half of the money you have available. Again, if I've got $500 and the car note typically costs $500 out of my 1,000, they would get $250, okay? Contact each and every one of these people one at a time. Again, you probably ain't got much to do. You stuck at the house, as long as your cell phone's still on. That's that again on the list, right? That's the utility. Basic cell phone service. If you got the Cadillac plan, you may need to dial that back a bit, right? That's another easy way to cut back a little bit. That's not completely eliminating something, but it gives you an option to have a few extra dollars in your pocket, right? So prioritize the 4 walls and then deal with anybody else if your money allows, right? So in the description, like I said, there's going to be a link. There's a link to the Houston Food Bank. There's a link to the What's in the Fridge, Fridge to Table app. There's also a link to the Quick Start Budget. So once you click on that link, it'll take you to a site and you can just get a Quick Start Budget emailed directly to you. It's just going to give you some of the stuff that I've talked about, walk you through the process of creating a budget. There's also a video for that if you want to check it out on the Do Better Financial YouTube page. There's also one on my website at dobetterfinancial.com. I know this is rough, and I can say this from firsthand experience. This weekend has been a roller coaster mentally for me. When we found out on Friday, my first thought was, finally we know. A little bit later, we both started thinking, oh boy, what all do we need to cut off? You know, do we need to stop automatic payments? A little bit later, the thought was, oh, this is gonna suck so bad. Like, we're not gonna be able to do anything. The next thought was, how long is it gonna take? You know, we went down a rabbit hole. It is now Wednesday. I would say we've both recovered reasonably from the general assault that is, you know, losing half of your income in a matter of, you know, 20 seconds. But here's what I know. We are literally clinging to one another throughout this process, working with each other, communicate, talk about it. If it sucks, tell your partner. Like, don't pretend like it's not hurting. You know, if you have kids and this is something that's going to affect their daily life, you don't have to give them all the details, but, you know, kids are more resilient than you realize. They will help you a lot. I can tell you that my niece is probably the most frugal person I know, and even when there wasn't an emergency, she was always trying to help me save money. So, you know, involve them age appropriate as much as you can, just because sometimes they can make it more fun. They probably will think it's hilarious that you guys have to make your own oatmeal, and they'll be excited about filling their little baggies. That's actually how I used to make my own oatmeal before I bought the packets. They might be excited about, you know, the different kinds of meals they get to make or things like that. They might just be excited to have daddy or mommy home all the time. So, you know, try to lean into that, lean into the family you have. If you are somebody who's on your own right now, I know this is going to be really rough. Lean into whatever support system you have virtually, if at all possible. If you have any questions while you're going through this process, trying to come back to budget, cut back on your budgeting, trying to cut back on, you know, any kind of spending, excess spending, trying to figure out how to negotiate or to call some of these people or work with some of them, you can definitely reach out to me either here on Facebook on the Do Better Financial page. You can email me at Christian@DoBetterFinancial, or you can there's one more of these, or you can, you know, just post on in the comments of this video. I thank you so much for joining me today. If you have any questions, again, please reach out. I hope to see you again soon. And if, you know, you want to come back next week, we'll be going over something else. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.